Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Rennie coaching podcast. I need to come up with a catchier name than that, but we'll work on that side of things. Today, I've got for me, a very special guest on, somebody that I have sort of looked up to, have a huge amount of respect with. He's been in the industry for a long time. He's got a background within the military. He's bodybuilt for a long time. And I found a lot of solace in him and how his mindset was over the course of my prep, and especially towards the back end. So it's Paul Callender. Paul, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Neil. I appreciate it.
Today, I'm going to have Paul on more regularly. We're going to discuss specific topics, but today I kind of want to take that in the direction of more the mindset side of things that you've been getting yourself into. But if you give us a little bit of a background as to like you, in terms of where you started and how you came to the point you're at now.
Yeah, definitely. So I joined the army at the age of 16, straight from school. Was in there for 23 years. Left when I was 40. Straight to personal training. Personal training kind of found me because I've lifted weights, since I was a teenager, even before I joined the army. So when I got that last year or two, when I knew I was going to leave the army, when my time was up, I kind of thought, well, what am I going to do? And my wife at the time, she said, you ever consider personal training? And I hadn't at that point, but it was something I'd been writing training programs for myself and following nutrition for such a long time. It kind of picked me, Neil. And so it was a straightforward, this totally makes sense. It's something I'm very passionate about as well, like yourself. So basically, I left the army officially in June 2014, but I kind of did. I got my garden leave before then, so I did my last tour of Afghanistan, got married, and then I did my personal training course. So it was quite fast and furious, to be honest. Got married, personal training course, so become head personal trainer, exercise for less, and there I bumped into Shannon Green Madison, and they encouraged us to give bodybuilding a go. So it was quite a mad 6 months.
Had you not done bodybuilding prior to that in terms of weight training?
I never ever done bodybuilding. Always thought about it, obviously, watched all the Arnold films and Sylvester Stallone stuff. I thought I'd always I want to be quite muscular and strong. But I thought about competing, not really. I totally admired it, but never really thought about getting that stage ready to actually compete. I've always been in good shape, but as competing, no, I never really thought about it, to be honest. And then when the idea was presented to us, I thought, yeah, right, let's give this a go. And one of the things I found with bodybuilding, one of the positive things was all these things I missed from the army, which was camaraderie, team effort, discipline, drive, finishing the goal, driving towards a goal. That was all stuff I found in bodybuilding that actually I missed from the army. So as far as transition, I went from being a soldier, to become a personal trainer, a husband, and then straight to a bodybuilder, all within 6, 7, 8 months. So it was quite some identity shifts there, which I wasn't aware of at the time, but it was quite a lot to take on, to be honest.
I think that's the thing. I think anybody that enjoys bodybuilding to a degree enjoys structure, the routine of it. And I think Absolutely. That can be a massive positive of doing it. At the same time, it probably has its negatives as well. Where have you seen because that is one of the questions. We've got quite a lot of questions actually, is if you were looking at your bodybuilding career, what have you found to be the most positive aspects of it? But then on the flip side, I like to be honest and open and go, where Absolutely. Is something negative in your life, or where have you seen now, right, I could have done that better with experience?
Definitely. Good question, mate. I think regards to the positive aspect of bodybuilding, it's healthy to a point. It's very, very structured, as I said before, what I missed about the army. It gives us that drive and them goals to drive towards, which I think a lot of people don't have. I think if you're not setting goals, you don't know where you're going. That's like jumping in a taxi and the taxi driver going, where do you want to go? And well, not yet, because you've got no thought, you've got no drive towards. So as far as drive and dedication, which is something I thrived on being in the army and having that structure, that was very, very positive for me. At the same time, it can become quite obsessive, and that's where it becomes quite negative. So you can become quite tunnel visioned. And I think by nature, bodybuilding, I think it's quite a selfish sport, but I think that's the nature of the beast. And if you look at any athletes competing and want to be at the top end of their sport, then yes, that is the nature of the beast. That said, I think there is elements of that you can't stop, but you can control.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've got a lot less experience within bodybuilding and competing than you, but I found every time I've dieted or got to a point where I'm getting to photo shoot shape or show, it's like that's been one of my main goals, is to make it less selfish, even though it can be an incredibly selfish pursuit. But I think, as you say, the most successful people probably have those sort of traits where it is that single-minded approach to it. But I think that's about finding your level and understanding what you want out of bodybuilding rather than what most bodybuilding requires of you. And I think that's what I said to clients, especially like first timers or people that are doing photo shoots, is like, you've got to make this work for you on your level. No one's, well, people will judge you, but you have to do it for you inherently. And I think where I found the most negatives from bodybuilding is when I get so over-consumed as to how it should be done, or doing it for other people's sake rather than doing it just necessarily for me, which I feel this time was better managed, although there was still definitely elements of it where you lose sight of that and somebody needs to bring you back in.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Like you say, it kind of is the nature of the beast, but I think the more you do it, it's a journey. 100%, it's a journey, and I think every time you go in to dip your toes in that pond, you will learn so much more about yourself. And at the end of your prep, I start asking myself, like, if I do that again, which I will, how could I do it differently, and how could I do it better? So it's you really got to look back and take stock, and not just take the stuff you've done for granted, and like look at say, if I do this again, you look at the negatives, and you also look at the positives, and you just think, how can I get more of that and less than that? And that's what you're in control of. So ask yourself better questions, you get better answers.
What has been your toughest moments within your bodybuilding?
Looking back with regards to, taking injuries aside, regards to my personal life and my family life, it's managing that selflessness where family's got, you've got dates put in the diary, birthdays, anniversaries, celebrations, and you're that person in the corner. We can't eat the food, you're there with your Tupperware. And let's be honest, at that time, the last place you want to be, the last place you want to be is there. You just want to be at home, with your feet up, chilling out. And then you've got to kind of raise your standards a little bit and think, hey, it's not just about you.
Yeah,
it's about the other people. And I think it's so easy to become that selfish mode where you make it all about you. Once again, nature of the beast. But that's something, looking back, you think, hold on a minute, I can control this. I massively can control this. Yes, it's going to be hard. It's going to take energy. But, I quickly learned that was on me. I could either choose to be selfish, or I could dig a little bit deeper and choose to raise my standards a little bit and think, hold on a minute, you're going to be here for a couple of hours. Let's not make it about you for them couple of hours. And that's what I did learn.
I think that's a great point. And I think a lot of people take for granted during it. And sometimes they never find that way. And they become so all consumed with bodybuilding that it is their life. It is their only identity. And like, frankly, unless you're making money from it or it's your career, you can love something, but it shouldn't just take over every single other aspect in which everything else starts falling apart around you.
I totally agree. And I think there's a lot of people get overly consumed by that. And, that can, it's like open Pandora's box for the aspects of your life. If you're not careful, it can get a hold of you, and, it can be quite self-destructive, to be honest, if you don't get a handle on it.
Yeah. Like, when did you last compete? When was your last competition?
My last competition was the NABA Universe back in November 2018.
18. So why so long a break between shows? Because that was one of the questions, is when is Paul going to jump back on stage? Because we've all been waiting, Paul.
As you know, Neil, it does take a lot of your prep, and I kind of prepped for the whole of 2018. I took a few weeks off, and I was lucky enough to go to Kuwait and train with some pros and did a bit of a training camp out there. Learned a lot there. Really, really, learned so much. I can't even put a figure on how much that was worth, what I learned. But at the same time, it was coming back from there, going straight back into prep. So I think maybe I had 6 or 8 weeks off, which isn't, it's just time to get yourself back to a standard, and then you're dieting again. So I didn't really put on much tissue. So dieting for a year massively took it out of us, and not just mentally, but physically as well. I started acquiring a few injuries. Obviously then COVID hit. And then just tendinitis, the shoulder injuries I've had for like 3 years now, which is obviously that's going to get sorted soon. Managing these injuries and still trying to add muscle, I guess. But on a positive note, I kind of had to change my training. I couldn't lift as heavy as I wanted anymore. Certain movements by my camera, I just couldn't do it because of my shoulder injury. And I thought, right, this is not great. Like, instead of focusing on what I couldn't do, I kind of think, right, just let's focus on what you can do. So I did try some new techniques, strategies, and although I couldn't train as heavy as I want to, I could still make some decent gains. Yeah. So that was one of the positives come from that injury, was just it changing my mindset about how I used to operate at the gym to, like, you can't do that. What can you do? Right, let's do more of that.
Yeah.
So I had to back off the weight a bit and increase the volume in certain areas, and there's some movements I just stay away from.
I mean, I actually think that's a great point. And I think this is the thing that, for me, this is what I like about bodybuilding, how it can transcend to other areas of your life. So it's like, if just because you can be so consumed on like, wait, what we can't do or what our limiting factors are, rather than going, right, hold on a minute, like what direction can I take this where it's still positive? And I think that can impact in just so many areas when you think like that, rather than going, I can't do it, because that's where so many people stop and then they never progress. Whereas something you want to do and something you love, you'll find a way of doing it. And I think that's interesting as well in terms of like working around the injuries, because again, from my own experience last year, I was having severe knee issues because probably I had a real bias towards just lifting weight and loading rather than thinking, right, actually, do I need to necessarily do that? That was just young and dumb and still trying to fight that side of the ego a little bit, which is another thing. And actually moving away, doing a little bit higher volume work, concentrating more on intent. Not only has like my legs were probably one of my better body parts on stage, which was a surprise to me, but also stay injury free. But it's probably made me a better coach and question my own coaching, how I program, how I train for different individuals. And that's what I love about it. It's like everything's just a learning process that applies elsewhere if you want it to.
Absolutely. Every day's a school day, and I never ever get tired of like learning. And I seek knowledge every day, and I just think, how can I make myself a better coach? Because the more I invest in myself, the better I can be, the better results I get with my clients. And so I'll learn from everybody. I'm never one of these coaches who think, oh, like, shit doesn't stink anymore. It's like, case I will learn from other coaches in the gym, like I did with the fitness fraternity. Seeing clients how they train as well, and I'll just look at it and I say, oh, I like the way they've done that, and I put my spin in it. So I think you learn till the day you die. I really do, and I think you should have the mindset that you want to learn as well.
You did put a good post out. I think it was on your Instagram the other day. Go check Callie's Instagram out. Actually, after I'll leave a link about the comfort zone. And I think that was something that it's so easy to slip into that as a coach or as an athlete. It's like, no, I know this, I've done this for so long, and you tend to like just forget the blinkers on and not want to learn. For me, a lot of that, as I talked about, that ego word, I feel that's a word that like hangs over so many people. Is like we have this personal bias, this my way must be right, rather than actually going outside the comfort zone and removing your ego from that situation.
I totally agree, mate. The egos, the road to recommend. I think, especially when it comes to when you're starting to bulk, you put a bit of size and you're getting stronger. You think, well, I'll just chase out a little bit more weight, and then your form starts to suffer. You start to get injuries, and it's just, it's all about ego. And I think that can transcend into other aspects of life as well, and keep your ego in check, and you're doing all right, man. But like you say, egos ruin you.
Like what I've seen, obviously, with yourself, Paul, as well, is like a bit of a transition to a degree in terms of since I really got to know you, and I've seen you going down now. Like there's more of like a life coaching route. Like that's something I'd be interested in sort of delving into about like how you kind of get into that, why as well, maybe, and maybe what you've taken from it so far.
Yeah, definitely. So back into COVID, coming out of COVID, I split up my wife, and I didn't like the person I'd become. And I was in a bit of a dark place. I lost a lot of friends to suicide. I was in a bad place. And like I said, I didn't like the person I had become. So I thought, well, I need to get a handle on this. This is not good for me. And I think a lot of people, they're either not happy with the lifestyle, so they're just not happy with themselves inside. And they'll say, right, I want to change. But the problem is, when it comes to change, only when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change, will people actually change. Well, and what happens is, for me, I thought, right, I didn't like who I was anymore, and it was more uncomfortable than the change itself. So for me, I think a lot of people, they get sick of where they are, or sick of where they want to be, and they go through that river of change or that river of uncertainty. They dip the toes in there, it gets very, very uncomfortable, it's very unfamiliar, and people go, oh, I don't like that. They rather go back to where they were. They don't like who they were, they don't like where they are, but it's familiar and comfortable, and when you're comfortable, you don't want to move. And so, unfortunately, there's a saying where everything you want on the other side of fear being that river, you just get through there, get halfway through, just you're going to get uncomfortable anyways. I think there's two routes in life. They're both uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable being fat, being unfit, being unhealthy. That's uncomfortable. Getting fit, getting healthy, going to the gym. That's uncomfortable. Choose what you're uncomfortable, because one's got a negative outcome and one's got a positive outcome. So if you're going to get uncomfortable, you might as well go balls deep and get the outcome you want. And that's kind of where I was. I thought I need to change. And then I hired a coach who I'm still with now, Paul Mort, my coach and mentor. Big shout out to Paul Mort. He really did help me change my life. He gave me a lot of tools, techniques, and strategies that I had to apply. You know, and people say knowledge is power. Knowledge isn't power. Knowledge applied is power. Knowledge without application, it's a fucking very expensive waste of time. So I can give anybody the tools, techniques, and strategies they need to do. If they don't apply them, fucking hell, you know, you're not going to get very far in life. You've got to do the work. And quite quickly, I realised that very, very fast. Got that victim mindset. Thought, you know, I've got myself here and get myself out. And I did the work, and I continue to do it every day. And I'm still with Paul Mort now, and I will be for the foreseeable future. And he's just, helped me bring myself out leaps and bounds, and to the point where I thought, yeah, I'm going to become a life coach myself, which I do alongside my personal training. And I've had some really good results from clients. I mean, you're talking life-changing stuff, not just physically, but, you know, getting that switch in the head, because unfortunately the body will go where the mind follows. You know, the mind sets the rules and the precedents, and, you know, you've got to kind of don't believe all your own thoughts sometimes, especially the negative ones, because the mind's such a powerful tool, both positively and negatively. And, you know, you get what you focus on. If you're focused on negative stuff, you think the world's all doom and gloom, but guess what? It will be when you've got that current mindset. However, you flip it over and say, you know, this is not brilliant, but I am controlled to make this better, and you start seeking for positives in life. Your life will change, man. 100%.
No, I love that. I think first of all, like, your honesty about everything is excellent. And I think that's where a lot of people maybe fall down when it comes to moving forward or going through difficult situations, is actually they're maybe not honest with themselves or don't want to admit it. Again, probably as you talked about, it's like that comfort or that familiarity is just, I'll just slip back into this because nobody's judging me. There's no challenge there. So it's easy to just hide away or stick things under the rug. And I know from my own, like, my life and my experiences is when I've been at my lowest or went through the anxiety, depression, whatever it was, it's when I was just putting stuff under that rug, and it just built up to a point where shit just spilled out everywhere. So it's dealing with that head on. Like, and as coaches, as you know, like, every day we're in contact with people, multiple, you know, lots of people that have issues, like we all do. And it's part of our job, really, to be able to do what we're doing and be able to speak openly, honesty, and then communicate a better way to do things potentially. Like, I think going down that route for you is just been massive, because I know when we spoke, when I was having, I'd say, harder days, definitely at the end of prep, it kind of made you go, right, tweak on. And actually, as you say, which I love the quote, which you can't remember now, but I'll put it in, about taking action. Knowledge without action is just a waste of money.
Oh God, yeah, you know, it is. It's like, you know, knowledge power is knowledge power. It's not if you don't use it. It's you know, you've got all these tools and techniques and strategies in your head. If you're not applying them, it's a fucking point having them.
No, like, you know, that's it. Like, I'm a huge advocate for, like, just like, I call it complete ownership. So it's like ownership of your thoughts to a degree, but ownership is more of the actions in which we take. Because again, from what I've seen in terms of people that are more successful, just they will say if they've done something good, that's on me. I take that. I've done really well. But at the same time, the hard bit and the difficult bit is when it hasn't gone well, is to go, you know what, that's also on me. Like, that falls at your door, whether you're going back or moving forward. So, like, just full ownership over everything. I like to take, sometimes too literally, but I'd rather have that than looking to outsource blame to something I can do nothing about then.
I think I totally agree with that. Once you take accountability and ownership for your actions, you actually empower yourself. If you don't, you go in that victim mindset, and it's easy to point the finger and blame this and him and her and that situation or this. And, you know, sometimes taking ownership, yes, it fucking does sting, but all it is brilliant. That's good.
Yeah.
Stand up, wait, road, embrace the challenge. You know, and as I say, you know, without challenge, you don't grow, man. But I think definitely being accountable and taking ownership of your actions, as I said, you empower yourself. That's how you drive forward, man. And, you know, that's how winning's done.
Yeah.
It really is.
Completely. Like, there's a lot of questions, like, surrounding that, you know, in terms of, like, so one was like, how tips really for dealing with mental barriers in prep. But then that kind of, it all relates, because we've kind of got stuff here like struggling to get motivated to train and dealing with them sort of motivations. Like, have you got any tips for somebody that is more struggling to, in terms of their own weight loss, in terms of more from the mindset of being motivated to get into the gym. Like, how would you deal with that motivation perspective?
Right, straight away, let's get this started. Motivation and willpower have a life expectancy. All right, you can feel, if I only trained on the days I feel motivated, I train twice a week. Well, you've got to create leverage.
One day too, wouldn't it?
I think when it comes to, you can't rely on motivation, because motivation and willpower don't work. Don't get us wrong, they've got the place, but you've got discipline will outweigh motivation all the time. And how do you create that? Create discipline. You look at something, you've got to create leverage to it. It's like, when you get prepped for stage, you think that some days you don't want to do the cardio, you don't want to do the weights, you don't want to eat that meal, but ultimately, if you deviate from your daily routine, your structured plan, you're not going to get to stage the best version of you, man. Looking at your ultimate best, and that's on you. So that's how we create leverage. And hold on, if I don't do that, I'm going to look a bag of shit when I go on the stage. So it's all about creating leverage. Like you say, relying on motivation. Good luck with that, because some days it'll be there, and most days it won't. Especially the back end of your prep when you're tight and tough, and the last thing you want to do is fucking get up and get that stair moss or whatever. So you've got to create leverage and stuff. And so yeah, if you're relying on willpower, that's not going to work. Motivation ain't going to work. Create leverage and create discipline. That's what gets results. Yeah, that's what winning's done.
I think, and that's the thing with them. You hear so many people saying they're I think sometimes they think people are in not our position. I don't want to say like we're somewhere above, whatever, but it's more like, how do you stay so motivated? And you're like, well, that isn't it. If it was, as you say, if it was just motivation, it's gone. Like, there is that discipline component. There is also just holding yourself accountable to what you said you're going to do, because that's probably what you want to do. And if that is what you truly want to do, that's where you'll find, I suppose for me, I always look at it and go, that's where I find fulfillment rather than instant gratification. Because like that instant gratification is like, people seek it, and I think like a lot of I don't want to get too like go deep and stuff, but like so many people in society just look for that instant gratification. That's why a lot of people overweight, a lot of people gamble, a lot of people do things that they shouldn't be doing, rather than going, right, what is my vision in the long term? Because I think once you said you have a goal that you're aiming towards, you'll drive towards that. If you have a long-term vision of where you want to be, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, then those daily actions will be a lot easier to go through and be disciplined with, rather than going, I'm motivated, because I'm motivated to have a cake sometimes, but I don't, because I don't have a goal.
I like what you said about instant gratification. So people say, no, it's great to be present in the moment, which is brilliant. But if you're present and you want that burger, you think, yeah, I'm going to enjoy that burger. 10 minutes later, you think, God, what I eat that burger for? I'm on a diet. So that's like short-term gain for long-term pain. You want to flip it over, so just do what you have to do now and think about the outcome. It's always about the outcome, because remember, tomorrow's outcomes are built on today's choices. What you do today impacts how tomorrow looks like, and I think you should keep that in your head at all times. So, like, is this going to serve my future self, or is this take us back to where I used to be? And ask yourself that question every day, no matter what you're doing. I think you live that by, keep that in your head. You won't go far wrong as long as you're honest with yourself.
Yeah, I think the honesty component, that's been such a big thing. What I did get as well was from a couple of coaches, Paul, was like, so we talked about like the mental health side of things and just prepping for shows, because I think in bodybuilding, if we're going to go back down the bodybuilding route, like it's such a mental game, and go during a prep, I don't think anybody is that, it sounds bad, but that mentally stable and healthy by the end of it, because of the places that you have to go to some dark places to get into true contest condition. You've done it several times, you know what it's about. Is there anything as a coach coaching somebody through a prep where you would go, that's a red flag, I'm not sure if we can continue going down this route?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. When that's why it's good. You've got to have that constant, especially when it comes to prep, because I think when you get to know your clients, prep can bring out the best in people as well, but it'll also bring out the worst in people. And if people have got some baggage, let's say, that they haven't dealt with, then that is going to come up as a red flag. And I think sometimes you meet them, well, hey, let's pull back a little bit here and let's get these dealt with, instead of, like as you said before, sweeping under the carpet, because they will resurface later on, and maybe they might resurface in a pretty bad way as well. So it's getting that connection with your clients, gaining their trust, and I think that's paramount when it comes to prep.
I think I like, if I'm going to take somebody through a show, I'd like to be working with them months before we even start prepping. It's not like just we'll enter a prep, we'll just get lean, because as you say, actually getting to know that client, and actually, because if you don't have a clean slate, I would say, of mental health, And again, it sounds terrible. If you don't have some in reserve down there, then you're going to be in a whole world of issues coming out the back end of that, whether that be food, body image, just generally mental health not in a good place. You have to understand that client, understand yourself going, am I in a good place to do this? Like from my experience in terms of like the first time I prepped was out the back end of COVID, and I was not in a position mentally to be doing that. I done that as again, under the rug job to go, right, this will pass a few months of my life where I know I'll have focus and intent on that, and honestly came out of it in quite a bad way compared to this time round. I'm buzzing for life again. The face is growing back. I'm happy because there was a better place, a better starting point. And I think it's recognizing in yourself. Like what has been your most difficult prep, would you say, for you, where you kind of went, this is going to leave me not so sure here?
I remember my second prep. I think I remember I was counting down the leg sessions. Like, I've got another 10 weeks of this.
That's when you know. Like,
I think the first prep, because it was all brand new, it was like, wow. I mean, it was tough and challenging, but it was because it was new. I kind of, wow, is this it? And I think the second prep, I fucking knew what was coming. I was like, shit. But I think, it's been focused, and it's been focused on the positive outcomes and focused on what you want and getting clear on your intent. I know for bodybuilding, it is, you got to get tunnel vision, but sometimes you've got to step back. And I think if you've got a good partner, or even indeed a good coach, they'll, well, stop, let's bring this back a little bit, and like, hey, let's go back to reality. And I think having these check-ins are vital for that. I really think they are. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that second prep, that was really challenging, purely because I knew what was coming, and I didn't. It was a challenging prep for me that I didn't handle the last few weeks very well. And I thought, and it was, I didn't compete for about a year or two because of that. I thought, I'm not going there again. But I did. And I think my wife at the time, she'd become a life coach as well, and she massively positively impacted me and how I dealt with stuff, and raising accountability and think, does this have to be as hard? Because people say, oh yeah, prep's got to be hard. Prep is hard, but it doesn't have to be any harder than it has to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think, and after that second one, I kind of, and as I say, prep's always challenging. You always be tired, you always get fatigued, but you've got that choice to think, right, I'm just gonna lie here and stuff. I think, it's going to be a bit more challenging than this, but I am going to raise my standards.
That's it. As you say, it's like in how you approach it. If you go on this in the cardio and you go, fucking hell, I got cardio, I fucking hate this. Right, it's like, no, right, let's go do cardio, because that's sometimes hard to do,
I think you just flip that switch in your head sometimes. I think literally just think, fucking hell, hold on a minute, and you catch yourself being negative, and put a positive spin in it, your fucking mood will elevate instantly. And this works. People say that's bullshit. It doesn't. It works. Trust us. The conversations and the language you use to yourself can be so positive and be so disempowering as well. So I always say to my client, mind your fucking language to yourself. And I think just having that word with yourself, you can just literally raise your mood instantly and say, right, come on, let's get that stairmaster, let's get that treadmill, let's do it.
I think like sometimes people find this sort of thing, like this sort of talk, so like cheesy and hippie, but see, if you tried it and embraced it, the difference in the impact it can make is ridiculous. Like on your life, it will literally change your life. But it's being, again, accepting to do it. It really is.
Be open-minded. You've got to be open-minded of it, because some people listen to now, that's bollocks, that's rubbish, that. And they obviously the ones who haven't tried it.
Exactly.
They're the ones suffering still.
We need to, with this, I need to buy premium Zoom for these podcasts, is what I need to do, because we've got a 40-minute time on it. So I'm very conscious of that. And I do want to get you back on probably once a month. And I think it'd be great to more thoroughly into like the training, the nutrition side of things. But what I have been wanting to end on is actually just, I've got like I would like to know like 3 future aspirations or 3 big goals for you within the 3 elements of what I see is really important in life, which is, well, life in general, bodybuilding, and business.
So life in general is just, people say people being happy, but people think happiness is a destination. It's not. Happiness is a journey. You choose to be happy, and do things that make you happy. And I'm massively an advocate of that now. Like, people always say, I'll be happy when I get this. I'll be happy when I get that. I'll be happy to achieve that. People like that will never be happy. They'll never be happy because they go to the next thing and they want the next thing. I think just choose to be happy. I think once you do that, you kind of make peace with yourself. regards to my business, it's certainly I want to keep on building my personal training. I definitely want to keep on with that, but also want to work more side my lifestyle, my life coaching as well. And I think there's a room for them to blend together as well.
Yeah,
and that's something I'm definitely going to work on 100%. Bodybuilding, well, you never know. We'll see what next year brings.
I will see you on stage next year. I'll not be there. I'll be watching fatter. But I think once we get this shoulder and that sort of, when you get your shoulder sorted, I don't think there'll be any stopping you. I think having like the knowledge that you know now, just experience, but also with this kind of, I think, new mentality that you've been developing, I think it's going to be, I'll be class to watch. You know what I mean? It's something that I certainly want to see. So it motivates me to get my hours back on the year thereafter. But Paul, it's been class having you on, mate. If people want to find you, follow you, where's the best place to get in contact with you?
Instagram, Cali507. Get us there, or Facebook. You'll find us on there, Cali507, my business page. But Neil, thanks for answering today. I really appreciate it, buddy.
Oh, mate, it's been great. As I say, we're going to do it a bit more often as well. So obviously, follow us, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff on YouTube. This will be up tomorrow, so you'll be able to post it in the link, and I'll post the link to Cali's Instagram, so be able to check him out there. But yes, thank you very much, mate, and we'll catch you next week.
I'll see you next week, bud.